jump right into the crux. I know banks are really working hard to attract new customers. So, how does a good CX program help them do that?
Yeah. It's been a very quirky last few years, so up and down for the banking industry. Before the pandemic, through the pandemic, and then with the rate environment being what it is right now, it's been sort of the best of times and worst of times for banks. But right now, there's still a huge amount of business to be had. On average, there's about 11% of households will switch their primary bank every year in the United States. That went to zero at the beginning of the pandemic and then shot up well above that as we got out of the pandemic. That's a lot of business. There's millions and millions of households looking to switch banks right now. But it does vary a lot, and you really have to be conscious of your market. So in places like Southern California, South Florida, Metro Texas, the switching behavior is actually a bit higher than that, 11%. It's actually lower in some Midwest markets. So you really have to understand your particular market. I know a lot of people are focused on rates right now because there's a lot of banks that are really desperate to get a lot more deposits. And rate switching, although it's kind of winding down, there's still some rate switching out there. But that's kind of dying down a bit. And even though banks are still desperate, I mean, I've seen banks offer 6% on their deposits. Talked to a banker just a week ago who was offering 6%, and they were getting no business, even though they were offering 6%. They were in a very competitive market. And so what was happening is when somebody would say, oh, I'm going to move my money over to this bank and get 6%, the incumbent bank would match that. So even with these rates being relatively high, there's still not a lot of switching of the hot money because of the rates. So what is making people switch right now? Well, it's the same thing that's always been the leader of why people switch banks. It's my bank messed up. That's by far and has been for decades. That's why people switch banks. Very few people switch banks from saying, hey, I have a pretty good bank I'm happy with, but let me see if I can find a better one. No, people don't do that. Very rarely do they do that. Mostly it's my bank messed up. So it could be, the statement is wrong again this month. Or maybe they had a bad experience with one of your staff members. Somebody was rude to them. Maybe they had an issue or a problem and they never got a call back, even though they called several times. Or maybe they have an issue with the app or the mobile banking and they just can't find anybody to fix it. Something a straw that breaks the camel's back that finally convinces them to move that's why they're switching. It's always a customer service. It's almost always a customer service issue like that. So when people are finally deciding to leave their bank, that's when they start thinking about a new bank. They don't think about new banks before that. Not until they're fed up with their new bank and they just say, that's it, I'm leaving. That is when they start to pay attention to advertising. That's when they start to think about what else they want. Do I want a large bank? Do I want a small bank? Do I want something in between? So it's your job to be in their consideration set as soon as they make that decision. And it's also your job to line up your values with what's making them switch. So if somebody is leaving their bank because they had the experience that nobody's ever calling me back, I had a problem, but they never respond. If right when they decide to leave the bank, they see one of your ads that says, hey, we're really responsive and we call you back. Well, guess what? You're going to be number one in their consideration set. Or if they had a problem, they thought that their previous bank or their current bank, that all of the staff were clueless about the app and the online tools. Then it can never help me out. I have to figure out everything else myself. And, I'm really frustrated about that. Then as soon as they start looking and you have an ad or you have some social media around how competent your staff is around your technology, you're going to be number one in their consideration set. Or maybe they're frustrated by their current bank that, hey, they're nice, but they never help me out. I always have to come to them. Do you guys offer this? Oh, yeah, we offer that. Do you guys offer this? Yeah, we offer that. And they get really frustrated. Say, what am I paying my fees for? You're just basically smiling order takers. If they then turn around and see you advertise yourself as a bank that leans in and really helps people with their financial well-being, you're really going to be the number one bank that they might move to. So anyway, you really have to know your local market in order to get new business, and you have to know what the pain points are. If you focus on something that everybody else is good at, you're not going to get any business. But if you focus on where they're frustrated with the other ones, the other banks in the area, that's where you're going to get your business. And let me, just to be clear about this, when you're trying to attract new customers, you should only promote something that you're actually good at. I've seen a number of banks say, "Oh, I know that everybody's frustrated with the digital technology in my area, so I'm going to say, hey, move to us because we got, if you're frustrated with their digital technology, move to us." But if we don't have good technology, they're just going to leave right away. So you really have to know not just what potential customers want, but you also have to know what you're good at. Who knows what you're good at? It's your own customers. So that's why it's important to do research amongst your own customers.